In this life, we all have to find a place to stand. We all need values that give shape to our lives. We all need timeless truths to hold on to when times are hard, and to rejoice when the going is good. If we look around us, we see that many people have lost a place to stand. Without timeless truths on which to base their lives, they're tossed around by the winds of false ideas. But in looking around us, we also see champions, men and women who inspire us with their courage and their ability to stand firm even in cultural headwinds. Minnesota Family Council exists to strengthen and encourage those champions and to help raise them up in the next generation. Everything we do is focused on strengthening families and advancing truth in Minnesota. We're fighting for religious freedom, for biblical truth about family, marriage, and sexuality, and for the sanctity of life. Every day.
Hello, I'm John Hillenberger, CEO of Minnesota Family Council. When Daniel was given a vision of the future, he saw that there would be some hard times, that God's people would face threats and even intense persecution, but he also saw that there would be champions. Minnesota Family Council exists to encourage champions. Daniel recognized that when people know God, they will stand firm. Knowing God changes everything. We really can have the courage to stand in every area of life. That's what Minnesota Family Council is all about. We're glad to partner with dozens of like-minded organizations and thousands of Minnesotans across the state as we stand firm, striving side by side together to exercise citizenship worthy of the gospel of Christ. I want to briefly highlight some of what we're doing. We can't do any of this without your prayers and support. Everything we do is guided by 4 overarching goals: to equip Christian citizens to be a winsome biblical voice in our culture, to advance biblically based pro-life, pro-family, and pro-religious freedom policy throughout the state, and to support Christ-centered statesmen and stateswomen for the ministry of elected office to rebuild the foundation of godly leadership in our state, and to strengthen alliances with like-minded churches and other organizations who are as committed as we are to making Minnesota a state where God is honored, where life is cherished, where God's good design for family is protected, and where religious liberties flourish.
I'm Meredith Campbell, Director of Public Policy for Minnesota Family Council. I work here at the Capitol to advance our legislative agenda, whether that means advocating for school choice or fighting against radical pro-choice legislation or physician-assisted suicide. There's never a dull moment. I'm not sure if people realize how much goes on to keep bad legislation that would hurt Minnesota families from reaching the governor's desk. It's more than a full-time job, and I'm so grateful to our partner organizations and for our legislative allies. I'm especially thankful for pro-life legislators who are opposing bills that would expand so-called abortion rights, while having the courage to stand up in this hostile climate and champion strong pro-life legislation. Our role at the Capitol is to be your voice for pro-family, pro-life, and pro-religious freedom legislation. It's an uphill battle, but God is doing great work at our Capitol.
I'm Pastor Jeff Evans, the new director of the Church Ambassador Network, which is a new initiative of a Minnesota Family Council. And what we're doing is calling upon pastors from around the state to come down to St. Paul, to the Capitol, and meet with legislators either in their office or in the hallway, or calling them off the floor during session, and asking how we can pray for them. 1 Timothy 2 tells us to pray for those who are in positions of authority, and we want to ask them how we can do this. There's a promise in 1 Timothy 2 that God desires all men to be saved, and so we know that in doing this, we're not just crossing our fingers hoping that God will bless it. We know He will. If you're a pastor, I encourage you to reach out to us and we'll schedule a time to bring you to the Capitol, train you, show you how all this is done. If you're not a pastor, I encourage you to reach out to your pastor and tell them about this great opportunity. They come down and see the power of the gospel at work in the Capitol and be encouraged in their own ministries as well.
I'm Emily Zenos, and I'm the project coordinator for Ask Me First Minnesota, which is a project that focuses on the transgender trend. The Parent Resource Guide is a response to the transgender trend in public schools today. It's a chance for parents to become educated on the issue and then to have some really concrete ideas that they can take into their administrators, to their teachers, and share with their friends in the school community. If parents are involved, I think we can turn this issue around. Courage is absolutely necessary on this issue, but one parent who stands up, just one parent standing up, will have an impact on the entire school community because courage is contagious. We know from Scripture that we are all created in God's image and likeness. That means we're all God's sons and daughters. That's a message we need to communicate to our children. It's a positive image of who we are. Every child needs to know they were born in exactly the right body.
My name is Moses Bratrud. I'm the Director of Communications at Minnesota Family Council. My job is to communicate what we're doing across all platforms, from social media to TV interviews. We face a hostile environment, and so it's incredibly important to communicate the truth in love, as the Bible calls us to do, in every area of our work. For me, that'll include coming to the Capitol, organizing a press conference, writing an opinion piece for the newspaper, or just managing what goes out on our social media platforms and sending our weekly email digest. We want to share uplifting stories of people who have the courage to stand for biblical truth in the midst of a hostile culture. And we want to encourage and enable our friends and allies to speak up, to make their voices heard for biblical truth, for religious freedom, and for the sanctity of life. The best part of my job is when people tell me that I've helped them to better understand an issue facing our state so that they can rise up and take action. My primary goal is to ensure that we are glorifying God and speaking lovingly and truthfully in everything we say and do.
I'm Renee Carlson, a local attorney here in Minnesota, excited to share with you about True North Legal, Minnesota Family Council's newest initiative. True North Legal is a legal organization that will promote and defend family, human dignity, and religious freedom for all Minnesotans. In the past few years, Minnesotans have seen increasing attacks on their most basic constitutional rights in court and through government policies. The goal of True North Legal is to defend Minnesotans against those attacks on their constitutional rights through strategic advocacy via litigation, policymaking, and education, so that those Minnesotans can live their lives peacefully, free from discrimination based on their faith. True North Legal will come alongside those individuals working and living according to their convictions, who stand courageously for family, human dignity, and religious freedom in Minnesota. We're excited about moving this initiative forward and for the positive impact that it will have on our culture, not only for tomorrow, but for future generations.
My name is Christiana Nunez. I'm the program director for LEAD Minnesota, which is a project of Minnesota Family Council. LEAD is a week-long summer program for high school students that teaches them to embrace their role as disciples and Christian leaders. We offer simulations for high school students that help them understand the legislative process. We bring in speakers and mentors to challenge these young people within a faith-filled environment. We want LEAD to do two things. The first is to develop relevant life skills, and the second is to instill biblical character in our students. Minnesota Family Council believes that to restore our culture, we need to raise up a generation of Christian leaders who have the courage to stand. We see our job at LEAD as mentoring the next generation of Christian leaders, challenging false ideas, and developing critical thinking skills. We're proud to provide them with the tools that they need so that they have the courage to stand firm in their schools and in the professional world.
Through our work at the Capitol, through our educational efforts around the state, through training a new generation of Christ-centered leaders, and through building up our church ambassador network, Minnesota Family Council is leading the way for bold, winsome citizenship across our state. Our prayer is that we would know God with unshakable faith in Him, and that He would give us courage to stand and to take action for His glory and the good of Minnesota.